Greetings, everybody. How are you? I am Brian Pulido, publisher of Coffin Comics, and we are here today at a program called Beer with Brian, a program of the Coffin Comics Sworn Club. This is an informal conversation. I am very likely not talking about selling, but I am encouraging you guys and gals out there to ask questions kind of related to the business of Coffin Comics. I'm completely unprepared in this last Beer with Brian for December, but I would be remiss if I did not point out that Coffin Comics is doing a benefit to benefit a super fiend, Karen Barry Welch. So on our store, Coffin Comics Shop, we are offering 7 lots, including really cool stuff like a #1 AP of statue, other statue artist proofs, a set of test action figures, etc. So if you go to Coffin Comics Shop, there's an opportunity to purchase sworn trading cards for $10, and in return that gives you a chance to possibly receive the lot. Now, you could either choose to receive these trading cards and we will ship them, but there will be a charge, or you could simply opt not to have them shipped. If I understand correctly, as we sit here and now, we've raised a pretty good amount of money for Karen. Now, Karen is a super fiend, and she lost her beloved husband earlier this year and has fallen on to some challenging times. So Coffin Comics and Sworn Nation is rallying around Karen in her time of need, raising some much needed funds to keep the lights on. So if you had a spare $10 or $10,000, feel free to make that purchase over at coffincomicsshop.com. So again, I'm open here to any questions, so feel free to fire away.
We got Philip. He's saying afternoon, Brian. He's joining us on Facebook.
Greetings, Philip.
So the fiends need to know, what's the latest horror movies this December that you recommend?
The latest horror movies that I recommend. Gosh, I think I must be slacking, but I would say consider seeing the Hollywood-produced movie Smile, which I think you can see on Paramount Plus. I think it's a very satisfying, solid horror. Fun idea. I won't go too much into it. That's a solid one. I'm always on the lookout for an independently produced horror or something unique. One I'm looking forward to, I think it's coming out on February 3rd, which is the new M. Night Shyamalan film starring Dave Bautista. And I think it's called, what is it? Someone's knocking on the door someone's knocking on the cabin in the woods. And the premise is there's a family and they're out in a cabin in the woods, and there's a knock at the door, and there are 4 people, and these 4 people say that the people in the cabin, based on a choice they're about to have to make, will hold the world off from the apocalypse or not. So looks pretty dire and interesting. You know, it's M. Night, so it's going to be some twists and turns. Let me see if there's anything else that's really caught my attention. I saw a BBC-produced Western called The English. It was 6 parts, and I must say, particularly the last 3 parts had a lot of horrific elements. I don't really want to say too much about it, but it was one of the best series I've seen in years, and it stars Emily Blunt. So there are horrific elements to it, truly, and I'd recommend it.
Got a question here from Jason Wyatt.
Jason, what up, yo?
Hey, Brian, any plans to come to the East Coast for a con next year? Also, thank you for all you did this year, and I look forward to seeing what you got planned for next year.
Well, we definitely have some. Jason, it was great seeing you at Sworn Fest. Always great seeing you when I'm in the Baltimore Comic-Con area. I guess here's the not so good news for next year. I don't know that I'm going anywhere back east because, as you may know, myself and Francisca are owners of Tucson Comic-Con. That happens next Labor Day weekend. The week directly after is next year's Baltimore Comic-Con. And that probably just knocks me out because I'll be recovering. I will have some convention announcements coming up in the new year. But some of the ones that you could already count on for 2023 would be Phoenix Fan Fusion, June 2nd, Comic-Con International in mid-July, and Tucson Comic-Con. I definitely have just signed on to a convention in September, and I'll let you guys and gals know more about that in the new year.
Here's a question from Matt. Has the Brian Pulido seen Terrifier and the recent sequel?
Matt, I got to admit to you, I'm completely remiss. I must see these films. I know all about them. I've read exclusively about them, but Terrifier is the sort of movie I would enjoy. But it's not the sort of movie that Mrs. Pulido would enjoy. So I always have to sneak away to see this one. Maybe to the whole other side of the house, like when people get ripped to shreds. So I am a very, I'm a bad horror fan because I know I should totally be seeing these and I haven't seen them yet, but I plan to.
Here's one from Philip Hum. What is Coffin Comics, or what is Coffin Comic-Con schedule for 2023?
Well, I mentioned before, but I'll mention again. Coffin Comics convention schedule to date for 2023 includes Phoenix Comic-Con, June 2nd in Phoenix, Arizona, Comic-Con International in mid-July, and Tucson Comic-Con, September 1, 2, and 3, 2023. As you may notice, I'm kind of keeping it down to the Southwest at the moment. I will make an announcement about another convention that I will be attending that I'm stoked about. But I'll do that in the new year. And maybe, who knows, maybe there might be another one or two. I don't know.
Here's one from Joel Johnson. Any chance of reacquiring the rights to Evil Ernie?
Hey, Joel, how are you? I think I do not see it possible of reacquiring the rights to Evil Ernie. I don't have much of a relationship with the publisher, although that human being was actually once my friend. So I don't really see it happening. I guess they're just happy driving all those properties very, very deeply into the ground.
Here's one from Jason Moore. Hey, Brian, great to see you, and I miss working with you.
Hey, Jason.
He said, Evil Ernie Destroyer was such a blast to work.
It was great. Yeah, it was a good time. Well, thank you for that comment. It was great. It was great working with you, Jason, on that one. That was an ambitious 9-issue series. I believe it was 24 pages, penciled by Kyle Holtz, written by Phil Nutman, and with an assist by yours truly behind the scenes. It was a fun, and that was a gigantic storyline. That was Evil Ernie questing after nukes, coming in contact with our Dr. Death character, our crazy carnival characters, homicide, all kinds of great, super dark stuff. A lot of fun.
Here's one from Raymond. Any plans for a Northeast visit?
Hey, Raymond, how are you? There aren't any current plans for a Northeast visit on the books at this moment. Anything could change. Certainly, I am a former Northeasterner, but yeah, nothing's on the books right now.
Here's a question from Kenny.
Hey, Kenny.
Congratulations on your team's amazing success with crowdfunding.
Thank you.
You have loyal fans, but how can you grow that base with that model? Huge fan.
Well, thank you, Kenny. Well, I guess what you guys see to the eye, the naked eye, is the fact that we've ran 32 Kickstarters. But how I'd invite you to look at our Kickstarters are, the Kickstarters are actually the tip of the iceberg. And the giant that is Coffin Comics is our shop, Coffin Comics Shop. So while the crowdfunding is very visible, our shop is mighty. And thanks to the great work of our marketing team headed up by Jimmy Calabrese, we have thousands of new customers every year. And it's truly magnificent, and it's and remarkable. So we take actions every day to grow our fan base, our fiend base, our customer base, because you are our lifeblood, and we want to get the message of Coffin Comics out to every potential customer in the world, which has to be at least 7 billion and counting. So we got our work cut out for us.
Here's a question for Drew.
Hey, Drew.
Diabolical Harvest is coming to you in January, right? Because my parents ordered it for me.
Well, we're shipping Diabolical Harvest as we speak. So depending on where you are, you may receive it before the new year, or you may receive it after.
And here's a comment from Mark.
Hey, Mark.
I have a box of corn dogs for you for Xmas. Have a great sport Xmas.
I love it, man. I will bring those corn dogs in. I will enjoy them, but I will not eat them, because your life has got to stand for something, and I have never eaten a corn dog. I also realized that I've never eaten a lobster roll, but I will break that. I will break that status as soon as I possibly can, because I've always wanted a lobster roll. And whether I want a corn dog or not, it's not irrelevant. Whether I like them or not, I don't know. I've never had one. That's the point. I've never had one. I realized I never had one. And now I'm never going to have one, because my life has got to stand for something. And what it stands for is I never ate a corn dog.
Here we got Troy Hudson in the house.
Hello, Troy.
And he's saying the past is the past, and Coffin Universe is rolling strong AF.
It is. Well, thank you so much, dude. I think for people who liked the energy of Evil Ernie, they're really going to enjoy a new comic I have coming out, of which the first chapter I have completed, and that is Mike Morgue. Mike Morgue. I've completed the first chapter. I feel Mike's got a lot of heart. There's a lot of insane ultra violence, and there's an element of comedy. So I believe that people may have liked that about Evil Ernie. Now, Mike and Ernie are two different characters. Evil Ernie was an undead teenage psychotic who ruled the dead and wanted to wipe out life. Mike's different. Mike actually is kind of a mild, unsuspecting metalhead who gets captured by a mad scientist who curses him with kill fists. And these kill fists demand human life energy. They're almost like vampiric fists. And Mike must take life from people, and he doesn't want to. He is always pursued by this mad scientist. So the story still has a lot of heart, because Mike's a great guy. It's got ultra violence, because Mike's kill fists do not play, nor do his enemies. This crazy doctor and his entire family lineage of mad doctors who were out there kind of trying to overcome their goal in life is to have mastery over death, and they just experiment and manipulate dozens and dozens of people to do so. So, Mike is a poor dude with a problem, and so a different type of story, but pretty radical energy, because you can imagine with these kill fists, man. Mike could punch somebody and their brain will pop out of their back of their head. If he hits someone in the chest enough, just their spine will just jack out. And then he just sucks life energy out, even if he doesn't want to. So, I mean, the poor guy, his hands are his own weapons. So Mike's a lot of fun to write. I will actually complete the second chapter, which would complete his origin story, in February. And I also have the artist lined up. So we should be going into production on Mike Morgue probably the end of February for publication in 2024.
Here's a question from Spencer Welch.
Hello, Spencer.
Hey, Brian, do you think we can get a La Muerta x Loco Hero Maverick Arts team up?
I don't know. I generally, respectfully, am not a big team up guy or crossover guy. I like that I have no boss and that I don't really have to collab too much. It's just something that I personally like. Now, that being said, I must admit I broke my own rule, because Coffin Comics officially licensed to Still Ill Princess, headed up by Dan and Nightmare Lynch, to do a crossover between Zombie Tramp and Lady Death. So that's actually Dan completely publishing it. I'm working on the story. I'm dialoguing Lady Death. I'm giving any kind of coaching that Dan wants, but I just trust Dan as a publisher and thought that would be fun to do. And he's younger than me, so he gets to do all the hard work. They're going to fulfill it and everything. So they know it. That's the game. Like, I'm old man Brian on this one, and they're like the young guns. They're going to take care of that stuff.
Question from Carmen.
Hey, Carmen.
Will there be any different versions of the Hell Witch action figure at some point?
Well, Carmen's asking if there's going to be any different versions of the Hell Witch action figure, and I personally have seen one. So I would say keep your eyes peeled. Now, also coming up in the new year, some newly improved action figure bodies, improved engineering. The manufacturer has also committed to improved quality control measures. We know and heard some of the things that occurred. We're on top of it, and we actually have brand new promises in place for those things. And the next series of action figures that will be offered at the exact same time will be La Muerta, Chaotica, and Lady Satanas. Maybe there will be a Hell Witch variant as some part of that. Let's see, shall we?
Question from Jason.
Hello, Jason.
Any chance you let us in on something new you're cooking up for next year, character-wise or story-wise for Lady Death?
Well, we've announced Lady Death Cybernetic Desecration. And this is the year-long storyline for Lady Death. This takes our character, our beloved Lady Death, and puts her in an alternative future where Lady Death has become Empress Death and is pursuing Megadeth and is down to the last 999 living souls on Earth. So our Lady Death is cast into this world. She doesn't know anything about what's going on. She doesn't even know if this is real initially, what really is going on. But what I can tell you is this is the most heart-wrenching Lady Death story I have told in years. Allies become enemies. Enemies become allies. All that she knows and loves dies before her eyes. So I believe this story, which is a love letter to Star Trek mirror stories, X-Men 141 and 142, the Days of Future Past storyline, and the sheer amplitude and excitement of 90s superhero comics. This is the melange that was inspiring me. That's what you can expect from Lady Death in 2023 in an overarching story theme we call Evilverse Unleashed.
David Franco wants to know, any plans for more Pogs?
Hi, David. We don't currently have plans for more Pogs. The Pogs that we produced and gave away as a stretch goal item were very expensive to produce, and we were very satisfied with doing it once. Hopefully everybody enjoyed them. It's very difficult to find manufacturers of Pogs. We found the one, and it was fun. We did it, and I think we're moving on.
Hey, and we just got Dennis Persh in the house.
Hello, Dennis. How are you? Official Fiend Inebriator. What up, yo?
So Matt S. is asking, does the Pulido household have any Christmas traditions?
Does the Pulido household have any Christmas traditions? We have a new tradition. Francisca and I have Advent calendars for each other. It's just a lot of fun. So starting December 1, we put in little gifts and little fun tchotchkes, and that's actually how that's how we are doing our gift giving this year. So every couple of days it might be a major gift. That way we're not opening up all our gifts at one time. And that is our tradition, our new tradition.
We got Brett Todd saying, what's up, brother? You
what
never
up?
Age.
That's right. I'm the ageless one. I'll tell you, it's crazy. I'm 61 years old. How did that happen?
We got Scott here saying, what I would love to see is Lady Demon return, or is she licensed to someone else?
So Lady Demon is also any comic character during the Chaos Comics era who got their own book, their name on a book, Cremator, Lady Demon, The Omen, Purgatory. They're owned by a different company, and I no longer have them. But I do understand your interest in a character like that. So you just stay tuned for 2024, and all your hopes and dreams will be answered.
We got Perry here asking,
hey, Perry.
You always work with some of the best artists. Is there
true.
any new artists you have your eye on and excited to get a chance to work with?
Well, I always, as a fan of comics myself, I'm always on the lookout for new talent. And I must tell you that the artist that we have working on the interiors for Chaotica is an amazing artist to keep an eye out. Also, the artists that we have on Lady Satanas, they're interior artists that you really want to be on the lookout for. I think they're exceptional artists and they have a bright future.
Okay, here's one from Daniel. What's your thoughts on an anthology series focusing on Coffin characters aside from Lady Death, similar to the old Chaos Quarterly?
So the question is anthologies. So generally using the word anthology is an automatic low selling event. So we as in the industry, we stay away from that word. What we have done in the past are things like Tales of the Coffin verse, where we told 6 smaller format stories. I have a dream that I've done nothing about of doing a Tales from the Crypt like book. That would be a horror anthology, and Lady Death would be the host. I've done nothing about it. It's just a dream. It's actually been on my drawing board for 3 or 4 years, but because we're in this continuity-driven mega storyline, that I've been really focusing in on that. So I don't see anything like that. Like every time I consider something like an anthology, I just say to myself, okay, well, why not just make it a full story? So as a small example, Mike McLean and I, or back in Lady Death Sacrificial Annihilation, in one panel, we introduced this group of characters called the Slatanists. And Mike and I were toying with them being involved in a subplot for the 2024 storyline, not the 2023, the 2024. So we got into it and we're writing it. And I said, you know what? Let's just give them their own comic. So we're instead developing the Slatanists as a full-fledged comic. And the reason we're doing it is the world needs a comic book called The Slatanists. That's why. We're missing that in the world.
Kate is saying, I love some La Muerta.
Thanks, Kate.
You're going to see her more in the future. And where's your beard?
My beer is somewhere in the next room. I got separated from my beer. You know, it's funny, too. We do these beer with Brian's at 4 o'clock Arizona time. And generally speaking, at a molecular level, I cannot drink alcohol before 5 o'clock. I feel like I'm still on the clock and I must be on the clock. So after 5, it's legit, but we're doing this at 4 here in Arizona and I just can't do it. There is more La Muerta coming. In fact, I think it's May 8th of 2023 is the next chapter of La Muerta, and that story title is Devious, La Muerta Devious. The story has been written a while ago. Joel Gomez just turned in page 27 out of 48 and is projected to complete. We are projected to complete the whole project around March 1, and we'll be ready for the Kickstarter in early May.
Raymond is asking, any plans for another Lady Death movie, either animated or live action?
Hey, Raymond, if it was up to me, I would say yes. But I think since motion pictures and animation involve millions and millions of dollars and tons of decisions, there's nothing any meaningful to report at this time. I'd also say that right now inside our culture, I think Lady Death is still, you know, even 30 years on, is still kind of edgy. You know, since we emphasize like sex and violence in our books, it's still perceived as edgy. And, you know, she's barely dressed, you know, all that kind of stuff. It just, the puritanical powers that be get a little up in arms about it. Or, you know, it's perceived, I don't know, as socially unacceptable. I don't know. So it's an interesting time for that kind of stuff. I would say maybe in my lifetime, we'll see a good quality Lady Death. You know, the other big thing is getting together the right people to have the character portrayed the way people really want to see her portrayed and not change her. I've had business offers through the years and have been in development deals with Lady Death. And frequently people want to change what she's about. And I just sort of hold to the idea of not doing that.
Ray is asking, any interest in bringing back some old school artists like David Michael Beck?
Well, I don't know. I haven't really given it a lot of thought. I really love the present and I love the future. I do believe that in the first quarter of 2024, not 2023, we are going to be featuring some of classic artists of the 90s representing their material in new ways.
That's interesting. Ashley is asking, what's she saying? Body jewelry, especially ear gauges with characters on them, would be great. Any chance of that happening?
Well, that sounds really great. I must tell you, though, this is something I like to say. We are comic publishers. So our focus is writing stories, then putting ink on paper, and then either stapling it or gluing it. So all those types of pieces of merchandise are super cool. love to be part of them, but we just don't have any expertise in that area. So if a partner comes along that can make a compelling argument to do something like that, maybe something like that can be done. But generally, you see our focus is comics, cards, prints, and merchandise related to paper goods. That's just our area of expertise. As soon as you start getting into other things, it's true we've actually manufactured statues. We've been associated with action figures. That's kind of our wheelhouse. Everything outside of that, I just go like this. How do you do that?
Nathan is saying he'd love to see a steampunk Victorian era Lady Death.
Well, that is fun. Through the years, we've had artists draw Lady Death in that environment, including Mike Crome and Sabine Rich. And that's a fun idea. I don't know what to say. Maybe that would be fun. I don't currently have plans for that. Currently our plans are keeping Lady Death in the continuity that we have. And that's been really fun for me. And it's been, believe it or not, kind of daring, because we're taking Lady Death into territories and genres one wouldn't think about. So, in the current sort of continuity of Lady Death, she's more or less in a superheroic universe, but she's an anti-hero and she's still Lady Death in that environment. I consider that a giant risk, but people seem to like it. And now we have Lady Death next year in a science fiction environment, with the future alternative universe story. But then in 2024, I think people are going to be very satisfied because it's very classic material, because it's latest 30th anniversary, and more on that to come. But I think it kind of veers right back into the heaven, hell, demon territory that people like.
Here's one from, where to go? Queen of Spookiness.
Hello, Queen of Spookiness.
How do you like to do your world building for the Coffinverse?
Well, I like to do it very carefully. I do all my world building all the time. I have a lot of files. I'm always taking notes. I'm always contributing to it. I generally go by what interests and attracts me, and I just take notes on it. And the governing principle of our universe is it's controlled by the supernatural, generally speaking. World building is a lot of fun. It's actually kind of the meat and potatoes of what I like to do the most. And a lot of it is me just collecting what I find interesting and exciting. And it keeps my mind engaged and busy, because there's never a time where if I'm standing in a line or there's just some downtime, I always get to go back and think about the world building, the world, the universe, trying the characters out, stretching them out. So that's one thing I've always liked about storytelling, is there's always something to think about. I could wake up in the middle of the night, my mind's busy, and I could throw it on the task of continuing to tell a story.
All right, just got time for a couple more here.
Just time for a couple more.
Dave is asking, any plans for new issues, Coffinverse side stories?
So new Coffinverse side stories, in a sense, yes. So we do have spin-off stories coming up. So we did that Tales of the Coffinverse, 4 6-page stories. One of the teams you saw there, called the Trust, play a big part in next year's storyline. I can tell you for sure Captain Scargrave is coming back, and let's see who else. And the character Lady Gunfighter, we are in active development on Lady Gunfighter, and we expect that Joel Gomez will begin illustrating the first chapter of Lady Gunfighter at the end of February of next year. So with the eye on publishing Lady Gunfighter in 2024.
Here's a question from Brian Perry.
Hey, Brian Perry.
AI art has been a big issue among traditional artists. What do you have in place for combating pirating of Lady Death and other characters?
Brian Perry, this entire topic of piracy has become increasingly crucial, particularly in the last 3 or 4 years as everything's moved to digital. So not only AI, but also a multitude of bad guys being able to reproduce stuff, prints, cards, coloring books, as you've known and as many of you have pointed out. Combating it is something that we are behind the scenes formulating a very aggressive plan for. Now, currently, we do what's normal. We do reporting, have things pulled down, but as we know, they continue to pop up. What is becoming clear by the day is that it's almost one human being's part-time job to constantly report and pull down. So it's, we do intend to combat, we do intend to protect our mark, but that actually may impact areas that people don't necessarily see right now. There's a lot to it, and we're working on it.
All right, that's it for the last question.
That was the last question. So boys and ghouls out there, I just want to thank you so much for a fun year. It was crazy, right? We had Swornfest. I went to Planet Comic-Con. We had Phoenix Fan Fusion, Comic-Con International, Tucson Comic-Con. We had great in-house artist events with Mike Chrome. We had 4 Kickstarters. Some we've shipped, one we're getting ready to ship. So it's been an amazing year for Coffin Comics. On behalf of everyone here, I just want to say thank you, and tune in next month for Beer with Brian, a program of Coffin Comics Sworn Club. Holler at you later.